Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nissa. If you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. My routine is completely stuffed. The last video was putting the house up. I still need to do the video about all the solar and stuff, and all the food prep and everything that I've done in between has been just all over the place. It has just been everywhere. It's Monday today, so I was hoping to get back into a little bit of a swing of things, except that it's a public holiday. So the kids don't have online classes, which means that they've been in my face all morning. Daryl has D&D on Monday morning, so he hasn't been available either. And it's just been, you know. So they ate leftovers for breakfast, and I'm trying to get some food put together for the next week is the idea. I have one pork roast left, which is what I'm working on now, and I was going to can some of it. Like I was going to can a whole roast, and I just don't know if I can quite be bothered at the moment, honestly. So I just got Apollo to turn the smoker on, and I think I'm just going to smoke the whole thing. I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces so that it smokes at a decent timeline, but I think I'm going to smoke the whole thing, and then I might do some burgers or something, some burger buns or something, and we can have it with coleslaw and stuff on sliders for dinner. And then I might come out here in the morning. I've pulled some other meats out that need to defrost, and they're not defrosted yet today, so I want to make sausage rolls tomorrow, but maybe I will make some English muffins as well, and then we can have the leftover pork on English muffins for breakfast, and then I can make the sausage rolls and we can have them for dinner or something. I don't know, but I've got the pork out for the moment. Actually, I changed my mind. So I've cut it in half, I've skinned it, I've rewrapped this bit, and we're going to put the rub on it. The other half I'm going to pull. I'm going to put it in the pressure cooker and pull, because that gives me 2 different flavour profiles for multiple meals over the next few days. So my knife could really do with a sharpen, but I couldn't find the knife sharpener, and I'm just not enough, couldn't be bothered. It's a bit of one of those mornings. So I'm just going to cut this into some smaller chunks just to fit neatly into the pressure cooker. Now, obviously a Boston butt is a better cut for pulled pork because it's fattier, but I find that these work fine. They end up a little drier, yes, but I try and leave plenty of fat cap on the top, and I cut it into largest chunks, and I do it in some barbecue sauce, and it works fine. So what we will do is we will put some of the pork rub on that as well before it goes in the pressure cooker, but this one is going to go in the smoker, so I'm going to get that in the smoker first because it will take longer. So yes, I took the skin off. Now we've got just this nice tightly rolled roast, plenty of fat left on it. Got all the skin here. I'm pretty sure I've got potatoes left, so I'll probably do some roast potatoes with dinner tonight. And yeah, then we will have pork for the next few days. I also have some beef mince defrosting and some sausage mince defrosting to make sausage rolls tomorrow. The beef mince I might turn into meat pie filling. So yeah, there's that on the cards too. Now, the next step with this is what I normally do is I cover it in Dijon mustard, but I've run out of Dijon mustard and I didn't appear to buy a replacement one. Now, I do make my own whole grain fermented mustard, but I haven't made any in a while, and I don't have any, and it takes a few days to make. So we're just going to use yellow mustard. I'm just going to give my hands a quick rinse. So we're going to coat the roast with some mustard. As I said, Dijon is a preference because it's a smoother, more mellow taste. Yellow mustard is quite sharp, but it works fine with this. So all I do is coat the whole thing. It's such a messy process, but rub the surface area of the whole roast with the mustard like that. I always feel like there's just so much wastage doing this process, but at the same time it tastes so good that I still do it. So we're just rubbing this into all the nooks and crannies, and then we're going to add the rub onto it as well. So then I've made up my rub. It's a mix of brown sugar, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, mustard powder, all those flavors. And we're going to coat this which again is another messy job, but worth the end product. I tend to tip it onto the board and then roll the coated spots on it. Now, I used molasses in this and it hasn't blended through quite as well, which is what the lumps are. So it's just molasses spices, which will melt and make the roast taste amazing as well. So I'm just going to get this all coated. I'm going to stick a probe in it, and then I'm going to get it in the smoker at about 160 for, it tends to take, I don't know, 3 to 5 to 6 hours. It just really depends on the piece that you're cooking. I do it to temperature, so we want to get it to 64, which is medium rare for pork. And once it hits 64, I pull it out and I cover it and let it sit for a little bit, and then it is all done. So I'm just getting this coated as much as possible. So it's got a nice crust to help it stay moist and add that flavor profile. All right, now let me wash my hands again. We'll get the probe and then I'll put it in the smoker. All right, so we stick the probe in the thickest part of the meat all the way down to the ceramic. This will give me an idea of the temperature in the smoker as well, because the temperature that I set the smoker isn't always particularly accurate. So this is going to go into the smoker for however long it takes. The temperature probe has an app as well, so I can watch the internal temperature of the meat as well as the ambient temperature of the smoker and all that all at once. So I'm going to get this in and then I'll come back to the other stuff. All right, I got my stovetop pressure cooker here. All I'm going to do is put the rest of this jar of my apple butter barbecue in. This one was the one that was open in the fridge. It is a 27, so it's a 600ml jar, so say 500 mils of my apple butter barbecue in there. I'm going to add some apple cider vinegar, and I think I'll put some liquid smoke in here as well. Wondering if I need to add a little bit of water. So when pressure cooking versus like slow cooking, you do need a little bit more liquid, because it heats up a lot more at the bottom than it does everywhere else. I'm just cleaning where the seal will go to make sure it's no sauce or oil on it, so that the pressure cooker will seal properly. So yeah, you do tend to use a little bit more liquid than you would if you were like slow cooking or whatever. So I may add one of my smaller jars of stock to this too, I think, just to make sure there's enough liquid, because if it burns, the flavor of it burnt is it's just not pleasant. So, and then it becomes a waste. So, you know, so I'm going to tip a little bit of this pork rub in this bowl, and I'm going to just toss it in there. Oops, splash in here. And this is going to add more flavor. I could fry this off first, but because there's sugar in the rub, this isn't really meant for frying off. It's meant for like smoking and things like that, where it bakes and the sugar dissolves and it creates moisture and, you know, that sort of thing. Whereas if I just fry it off, the sugar would just burn. But it's going to add all these seasonings in here and to added to the flavor of my apple butter barbecue already. And as I said, I think I'm just going to add that jar of stock just to make sure that there's enough liquid in here. All right, so we've got all that in here. As I said, I'm just going to add a bit more liquid. You don't need to, it creates its own liquid. My stovetop runs a bit hot, and I have burning issues with pressure cooking on my stovetop, so I'm just going to be a little bit extra and add that bit of stock, and it can always be thickened up later if I want the sauce. All right, so pulled pork is on, smoked pork is on. I'm going to do the batch of slider buns up next, but we haven't had lunch yet. The kids had leftovers for breakfast from last night, zucchini pasta and stuff, but we haven't had lunch yet. So I've just done a fresh batch of my chili oil up. I did a fresh batch of the ramen seasoning the other day. So I've just done that, heated that all up, and that has just fried off in that bowl, which I always let to sit before I transfer it to glass jars. And I've got a pot of water on to do the noodles, and I'll mix up that dough while I'm waiting for that to boil. Normal brioche dough, it's on the website. I'll try and remember to put a link, but normally it's in the description anyway. Slightly enriched, no eggs, but with a bit of cream, coconut cream in my case. I'm going to mix this up, put it on the KitchenAid for 5 or 10 minutes, and then let it proof, and I'll bring you back when I'm shaping it. Right. Noodles dough has proofed. It has ended up very, very wet, but that will make for really nice, soft rolls, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that it's a little bit more challenging to shape, but we're getting there. So I'm doing about 90-gram rolls, just like that, placing them on a baking tray, and I will let these proof for probably half an hour or so, and then I will bake them off. The pressure cooked pork I've just turned off, so it's coming off pressure now, and the smoked pork is about 30 degrees, so it's still got a fair way to go. So we will get there with that one as well. I'll show them both to you at the end. I should bake some muffins or something. I don't know if I'll get there though. I need to go up and give Mum a hand with putting some furniture together, so we'll see if I manage to get there. If not, I need to do a bunch of stuff tomorrow as well before I head back to work on Wednesday. So, alright, so I spent the afternoon with Mum helping her put the calyxes and stuff together. So I've just done some containers up for her. So this is the smoked pork that I'm slicing. I sent some of that up to her. We've got the pulled pork as well that is here and just falls apart in the barbecue sauce, so I sent some of that as well. Got the brioche rolls all cooked up as well, some cabbage, mayo already made, and so I sent her a bit of a spread, and that's what we're going to have as well. So I'm just going to lay out all the cut pork, some of the pulled pork as well. We've got grated cheese, cabbage, mayo to make it sort of coleslaw, and then we will everyone can serve themselves, and then there will be plenty of leftover meat and stuff for lunches and that tomorrow for whatever we have. All right, it is Tuesday morning, and I need to get some stuff done today in bulk for the next few days because I work the next couple of days. Daryl's in Toowoomba all day Friday. Mum and I need to go for a trip into Toowoomba sometime Saturday, Sunday. So we need to get some prep done, and I need to plan things because part of the problem with working is having the pulled stuff out to eat for the evening to make meals easier and things like that, which is still something that I'm work in progress because I'm so used to being home all the time. So I pulled a couple of kilos of beef mince out, and I'm going to turn this into pie filling. I also pulled a couple of kilos of sausage mince out that I'll turn into sausage rolls. And then the plan was to do some savory scrolls or something as well, which I will do the dough up for shortly, and maybe do ham cheese type savory scrolls or something. I'm not real sure yet. But first up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mince up all the veggies that I'm going to use as the base for the meat pies as well as the sausage rolls, because I always do that, and I cook these off. So like a mirepoix, basically, but with bacon added. So I've got carrots, I've got some celery, I've got onions, I've got garlic. So all I do is I mince it all up in the Thermomix. So it's really nice and fine, and it cooks off nice and fine, and it blends through the meat well. So I've got, I don't know, I think it was 5 carrots here. I'll cook it up and I'll see if I want to, I'll mince it all up, get in a pan, and I might want to add more because I wasn't really thinking about the fact that I'm going to use it in both recipes when I first pulled stuff out of the freezer. So we've got some nice big onions as well. I've got my elephant garlic from Nikki, so I will pull quite a few cloves of that out, and I'm just defrosting, quick defrosting in warm water, some bacon, because I forgot to pull, I pulled some middle bacon out, but that's for like cooking up to have as breakfast rolls. We've got those leftover brioche rolls from last night, so I'll probably do bacon and egg rolls for breakfast. We've got all that pork as well that can be used over the next few days and then frozen if it's not used. But I could do like fried rice for dinner one night with some of the pork. We have one kid in particular who really doesn't like fried rice, but can't always please everyone, and he can have something else. The rest of them are happy to eat fried rice. So all I do is I throw it in here and I just put on speed 5 for a few seconds. Oop, lid on into the, I've got the 7 here at the moment because I've got a clean bowl. And I think my 6 is unplugged at the moment because I needed the PowerPoint for something. So I'm just going to put it on speed 5 for a few seconds, and we'll have a look at how we could probably go a little bit finer for this purpose. That would be fine if I was doing it as a, well, actually the meat pie is not such a big deal because it'll be slow cooked, but the sausage rolls are going to just be fried off and then mixed through. It's probably all right. That was 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. It's probably fine. We're going to cook it off anyway. So I will get that tipped into a pan. I'm going to do a couple more onions. I'm going to do garlic, and I've got some celery to do as well. And we'll get this fried off. All right, so this is all the onion, garlic, celery, bacon sweated off. I'm going to split this in half. I need to cool half of it to put into the sausage roll mince, and the other half will go back into the mince. So I've got the mince here. I've just turned the pan back up to high, and I'm going to brown the beef mince off that this will then get added to. All right, so the beef is browned off. Now, because we're using mince, it doesn't create as much, like, you know, flavor, I suppose, in the browning of the mince. So we're just going to put about half of that vegetable mixture in as well. Mix that through. We probably could do with a bigger pot, but we'll see how we go. All right, and then I'm going to add in, I don't know, half a cup of flour and just mix that through. Suck up some of those meat juices. All right, then to that, I'm going to add a jar of my really rich chicken stock. Alright. Then I'm going to add a big heaping tablespoon of beef bouillon, which will help to compensate for the fact that it's minced, not chuck steak. But we also might add gravy powder in the end too, so that will help with the richness. If we add a bit of dark soy sauce here, we will get some darker color as well, and that will add salt. And we have homemade Worcestershire sauce as well, which I might open a fresh jar and add a bit more of that. So we'll do that, and then I'm going to add some balsamic vinegar, except I think I finished my last jar. I have to go and find the backup jar on the shelf, so I'll add some balsamic vinegar to that as well. And then I'm just going to let it simmer about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Reduce the liquid, let any of the chunkier bits of beef just soften a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to add some balsamic, and then I'm just going to let it simmer, and then I will assess, and we'll probably add some of the Maggi rich gravy to that as well, and then we'll have pie filling. So this needs to be cold before I can fill pastry. So this is not for today. This is about getting it cooked and in the fridge and ready to go for tomorrow or the next day or whenever, maybe even Friday. So it's Tuesday at the moment. It can sit in the fridge for 3 days, and then I can turn it into pies on 2 days, and then I can turn it into pies on Friday when I'm back from work, and this could be Friday night's dinner. I think that might be how it'll end up. So it's going to cook all day, go in the fridge for 2 nights, which is fine, and then be turned into pies on the Friday. But this part of it's done, so other than tasting it. So balsamic and then cook it for an hour and a half, probably add some gravy powder and get it just to where I want it, and then it'll go in the fridge to chill until I'm ready to use it for pies. All right, so I've got 2 kilos of the sausage mince. Now this was the mince that came from the half cow that's got the emulsifiers in it and some seasoning and stuff. I'm not sure entirely what's in it, but I asked for it not to be turned into sausages because we're not huge fans of beef sausages, but I don't mind beef sausage rolls. So pork is preferred, and normally if I'm choosing my meat, like if I had a specific choice about my meat, I would normally use pork. But I like beef as steak, I like beef as pulled beef, I like beef as roasts, all that, and pastrami and all that sort of stuff, but I'm just not a huge fan of it in sausages or sausage rolls and that, if I can use something else. So there's still a few frozen bits in here, so all I'm doing is putting this warm mirepoix mix through it so that it chills it, because I'm going to add some eggs. So I just want the temperature of it overall to reduce. Normally I would refrigerate that mirepoix mix for a couple of hours, but I'm trying to help the boys with schoolwork as well. They're sitting at the dining table doing some research projects, so I'm just limited on time today. So we've got that blended through. So now I'm going to grab a few eggs, some breadcrumbs, things like that, and we will get this sorted to go into pastry. All right, so I've also got this portion of a bag of Parmesan. I'm going to add this in to add to the flavor and texture and fat content. I've got 3 eggs here. I'm just going to use this dirty bowl to crack them into first because they are eggs from our chickens. So we always crack them into something first, just in case. And I just managed to put a big piece of shell in that one. So we'll start with this. I need to open that other jar of Worcestershire because I'll put some of that in here as well. They have very similar flavors in the end. So we've got 3 eggs going in. I've got homemade breadcrumbs here. This is made from whatever doesn't get eaten in a decent amount of time. So they're nice, big, chunky breadcrumbs that resemble like the panko crumbs because they're big pieces. I don't know what I put in there. It's 2 kilos of mince, so it probably needs around about a cup and a half of those. Worcestershire sauce, and just to show, this is how dusty and dirty the bottle is because it's been just sitting on an open shelf because we've had so much movement on the property with the new building and everything that the everything is just covered in dust at the moment. All right, put a good slug of that in there, homemade Worcestershire sauce, and then we're going to mix this up and I will have a look at the texture, and I'm gonna have to use my hands again because it just doesn't blend properly otherwise. Just get sick of having to walk over to wash my hands all the time. All right, it's still feeling a little wet to me, so I'm just going to put a little bit more breadcrumbs. It's this balancing act. You don't want it too dry because you want lots of moisture in your sausage rolls, but you if it's too wet, it'll make the pastry on the bottom soggy, so you definitely don't want that. Now I've got only one clean hand, so that feels better. And these breadcrumbs, because they're nice and chunky, so if you are using breadcrumbs in something like this, you're better off using like a panko crumb rather than like a really fine breadcrumb that you buy. And that's because it creates little pockets of air when you're cooking it, which makes them less dense. Okay, I'm happy with that texture now. So I'm going to clean my space up so that I can pull the pastry out, get some trays out and stuff, and then we'll turn them into sausage rolls. All right, so we've got pastry. We cut it in half, and then we place the meat in it. So you just need to place enough that the sausage rolls are nice and full, but not so much that you can't roll them. And you sort of figure that out with the first one. I think I ended up measuring that it's about 125 grams worth of meat per half pastry sheet, because I had considered freezing the meat in the logs without the pastry when I ran out of pastry one month. But you just want roughly a third in the middle of the pastry, and then we will roll them. The pastry's not quite soft enough to roll just yet, so I'm just going to fill more of them, and then I will come back and roll them and put them on baking trays, and then we can start baking them off. I don't know how much, this was 2 kilos, but then we added all the other stuff, so maybe 500 grams worth of other stuff, so maybe 5. So how much is that? That's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 odd rolls maybe, if it's 125 grams. So that's a good amount if we get that far. So I always end up overfilling the first few. It's like your first pancakes that are never quite right. So I just need this to be a bit softer before I can roll it, otherwise it'll crack. So we will try rolling it, and then we'll see how we go. I had a thought too while I was doing this that I could put the beef pie filling in the slow cooker. I keep on forgetting to use the slow cooker because I couldn't use it for so long. But rather than babying it on the stovetop to simmer it for an hour and a half, I've just stuck it in the slow cooker on low for a few hours, and then we'll put it in the fridge. So I got that sorted as well, so I don't have to worry about that. All right, and then to roll them, all we do is we bring the top over, peel plastic back, make sure that it fits in that 1/3 because we're going to roll it one more time. So this might be just a little overfilled to be able to meet the, we should be right. And then we just roll it to meet the other bit of pastry, and that becomes our bottom, so that sandwiched bit there is on the bottom when it bakes. And then we got one full stick done. So I'm just going to repeat that process. I do cut them before I bake them, but only because it means the cooking time's a little bit less. But also I really like those crunchy end bits where the meat in the end of a sausage roll. I've always liked the ends of a sausage roll. So by cutting them, get more ends. So I'm just going to go through, roll them, cut them, we'll egg wash them and sesame seed them, and we'll get them baked. We ended up with 25, 50, 68. And that works out to be around about, divided by 4, we got 17 halves, so we got 8.5 sheets of pastry. So we've got a half sheet sitting here. So 8.5 sheets of pastry, 68 individual little sausage rolls for a base of 2 kilos of mince. Now, I didn't weigh the stuff that I was adding to it. So that was a guess. So it was, there was 3 eggs added, there was the breadcrumbs, there was the onion, bacon, etc. mix as well that added to it, and all the rest of it. So that's what we ended up with anyway. So I'm just going to, I've got an egg mixed with a little bit of water here. I'm going to egg wash all of them, sprinkle them with sesame seeds, and get these in the oven, and then decide what else I'm doing. So that pie filling is in the slow cooker, but as I said, that'll probably be for Friday night's dinner. And we will probably make this like a week long, I suppose, depending on how things go and the rest of it, that doing like a weekly kitchen video, unless there's something specific, is probably going to work. We'll see how we go. Anyway, I'm going to get these in the oven, and I'll show them to you when they're done. I've had some lunch. Everything's low on battery, so I need to go and charge it in a minute. The meat pie filling is just about done. The sausage rolls are just about ready to come out of the oven, so I'm going to mix up the dough for some scrolls, and then I'm going to go sit down and do some admin work for a while. I've got the butter out to soften to make, I might make some cinnamon scrolls as well as some savory ones. I'm trying to decide how much I want to make, whether I want to do a double batch of dough or not. It's just such a lot of effort, but if I want to do sweet and savory, anyway, I'll start off with normal batch, and we'll do the same thing that I have been doing, which is the brioche dough that's up on the website, but backed off a little on the liquids. I have been taking photos and I do need to put it up on the website, but I haven't got there. I was just thinking about it, actually. I'm just warming up some water in the kettle to start this off, but I was just thinking about the fact that maybe, because I hadn't really known what to do with my Patreon for my Patreon members, because I just didn't know how to do some extra content for them. It's like the members of YouTube. I just don't really know how to give some extra content there. Basically, the members of YouTube, you're just supporting me and you don't get anything extra out of it, and it bugs me a little. But anyway, but what I thought about the Patreon is what I could do is I could start like a recipe book up there with just the posts, a couple of photos and a recipe, so that I've got it written down somewhere that I can then use to turn into blog posts, or everyone wants sort of some sort of a printed, like a recipe book from me at some point. And I'd like to do that, but there's going to be some work in it in figuring out the best way to do it the way that I cook. Like, I don't cook to a standard recipe. I cook to making things that are then going to work in multiple different ways, or I cook to giving a base recipe that you can then adapt to how you want. So I was kind of think of like something, it could be a little bit like a build your own recipe type recipe book, where it has all the different fragments that you can use and all the ways that you can adapt them for all the different things, and then all the options for those sorts of things, which also doesn't work real well on the blog, which is why I haven't done it too much there either, because it takes a lot of work to do those recipes up on the blog. But also the idea of a blog is to get traffic, to get paid for advertising, right? That's the premise of a blog. And I don't put enough, if you don't have enough recipes on there that people are searching, if it's not formulated so it's found on Google, and then it's a lot of work for not a lot of anything back. I'd much prefer to do it in a way that the people who are truly interested, which is you guys, have access to it. So maybe I need to just start putting really quick posts on Patreon with some of the recipes and a couple of photos that can then be used to adapt later. And it means that you guys can test them, because the whole point is too that I test them over and over again, but realistically I need people to test them as well. So people do from the videos, but I don't always get the recipes written down in the videos. And then as I change things, I could add notes on Patreon stuff as well, so that people could access that as the recipe book type thing. And maybe I'll do a PDF or a print one at some point, but that's ages down the track. It really is. It's just something that I do not have the time to do. But this Patreon, it might be the way to go. And then that way you're paying a monthly fee for copies of my recipes and stuff, easily accessible, no advertising on there or anything like that. Because I know that some people use Substack for that kind of thing. Well, I've already got a Patreon, so I kind of may as well stick with that. But anyway, give me some feedback in the comments about what you think about that. That might be a way to go. But anyway, I'm going to make this dough up. The water should be warm enough now. So I'm going to make this scroll dough up. I don't know whether I'll make 1 or 2 batches. It's only 12:30. I could probably make 2. And then that way the kids and everyone are done for food for the next couple of days. They'll have leftover sausage rolls, there's leftover smoked pork roast, there's leftover pulled pork, there's a few hamburger buns left. And then they'll have savory scrolls, sweet scrolls, and it should all be good for the next few days for them to be able to access food without harassing Daryl. And potentially parts of it can be dinners too. So that meat pie filling will be Friday. I'll have to think about what I do for Wednesday, Thursday. The thoughts around food are never ending, I tell you. Anyway, I'll mix up this dough. I just realised I forgot to show them to you cooked. So this is them done. This is what's left after I took half a dozen up to Mum, and the kids have had lunch and all the rest of it. So we've got these left in a container, and then we will put these in the fridge for the moment, and they can be eaten tomorrow or whenever. And now I need to work on the dough. Though, when I made the dough, the water I used in the bottom dough was a little hotter than it should have been. And I'm wondering if it killed the yeast, because if you look at this, one has risen and one hasn't. So let's have a look. There is a clear separation between the doughs, and the one on the bottom is, I don't know. It's lovely and malleable, but it hasn't really done anything. I'm going to throw it back in this container because I can make flatbreads out of it if it doesn't do anything, but just to make sure that it's not doing anything. Because yeah, this one's all bubbly and airy and that one's not, but we do roll it out and then roll it back. We do roll it out and roll it back in again. I'll just work with this one first. I'll put this one back in here and we'll see if it shows any signs of anything. I might put it somewhere warm first. Right, I did the first lot and forgot to film it as usual. We've rolled this out. I've got a bag of the sliced ham from, you can't see what I'm doing. Here we go. Sliced ham from Costco. These just round leg ham. And all I'm doing is I'm going to put them in for like a second and a half on the Thermomix. Not even that. It didn't even register a second. And we've got, I'm going to do it one more bit because we've still got some pieces that didn't get caught up because they were too big. Again, hasn't even registered a whole second. And we've got shredded ham. Alright, I'm going super simple with the toppings. I've stretched this out to the rectangle and I'm just going to put a decent amount of, I forgot to put tomato paste in the pie filling, so I needed to open a jar for the pie filling anyway. So I'm just using tomato paste mixed with onion jam as the base for this. Let me turn it off in a minute. I'll turn it off in a minute. And then just a scoop of the onion jam as well to add to the flavour. Like that. And then we're just going to cover it with the shredded ham. And pizza cheese, and then we're just going to roll them up. And we roll it up. Now we're going to bring the bit that doesn't have sauce on it to the, because I like to overfill them. Because we want more filling to dough ratio is the goal here, because that's how I like it to be. So we've got that all rolled up, and then I just mark it, and we ended up with 21-ish in the other one. So this is a bit smaller though. 18, 19. Actually, I think we ended up with 19 as well because I ended up putting 2 of the end pieces in clumped together. So that must just be how this works. I don't know. It'll be fine. So then I'm using my Victorinox bread knife, and I find that this works really well for this because it's a really nice thin blade. It's got the serrated. It just slides through. So we'll do that, and then we'll place it on a baking tray. And that's the second tray done. So both trays are sorted. I'll give them 15 minutes just to proof up, though you can still see the bubbles. You can see the bubbles in the dough. Preheat the oven. We'll get them cooking. Now, the other dough definitely has bubbles in it, but it just hasn't proofed the same way. As I said, I think the water I used was a bit warm. So I might end up putting it in the fridge overnight and doing something with it tomorrow afternoon at dinner time, because it will continue to proof just slowly in the fridge. I suppose I could turn it into cinnamon rolls now and let that second proof happen for as long as it takes, and then cook them. Maybe we'd have them late think it's 3 o'clock now, so even if it took 2 or 3 hours, there'd still be dessert hot for dessert tonight. That might be nice. Maybe I'll do that. So I'll mix up some butter, cinnamon, sugar, and I'll roll these out and put them on trays and cover them for later. I think that's what I'll do. But the savoury ones are going in, so this will be lunches and stuff for the next couple of days. This dough was not very easy to roll and cut. It probably needs to be refrigerated because it was that loose sort of silky dough without the proofing. So I did a tray of the standard rolls. Some of them turned out okay, but a lot of them were wonky, so I did some twists as well. So now I'm just going to cover these with the other baking trays, and I might put them on top of the oven where it's nice and warm, and I'll give them half an hour, and we'll see what they look like. But yeah, I'm not sure. Like, the dough definitely has bubbles and stuff, but obviously that water was too hot. Alrighty, so it is Friday morning. We had our first frost overnight. It got down to -2. It was pretty chilly. I worked yesterday, Thursday, so the kids have eaten pretty much all the scrolls and everything else, and everything that was made. There's still a bit of pulled pork left. I used the leftover roast pork and stuff to make fried rice for dinner last night, and we've had fried rice for breakfast / lunch today as the leftovers. So next thing I've got the meat pie filling. So I need to make pastry. So the pastry needs to chill, so I need to make the pastry as my next thing to do. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, normally I make pastry with lard, but I don't have any lard at the moment. I normally process it, and then I normally buy it in the fat in bulk from a butcher in Toowoomba, and then I render it and I jar it. But I haven't done it for a couple of years actually, because it was just a really big job and I just haven't got around to it. I did have a look. You can buy some rendered lard online from the Jerky House or Jerky something or other, and I did think about buying that, but the shipping is quite high, though I still think that even with the shipping added on, the cost of the lard, it comes in a pail type thing, probably is still worthwhile when you count the cost of buying the fat, the processing the fat, the all-day job of rendering the fat and things like that. So I'm still deciding, but regardless of that, I did buy some tallow to try in pastry because it was easy to get from the grocery store. But I haven't been happy with the pastry using that lately. I did try with butter as well, but again, the recipe that I use, I figured it out based on using lard, and lard just reacts differently to all of these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tallow, but I think I'm going to bump my quantity of olive oil in it. So normally I do 60 grams of lard, 60 grams of olive oil, which I tried that with the tallow, and it was very short and very crumbly, and it just did not roll out very well. So I need a bit more moisture into that. So I think I might just do the 60 grams of tallow, but I might do a 75 grams of oil, and we'll have a look at that. And I'm going to make a couple of batches up because I have a big container of pie filling that I'm going to make. And if I have excess, I can always make an apple pie or something as well. So we're just going to throw that in the Thermomix and get it all sorted and get it in the fridge, that I've got that for later. All right, so in the Thermomix, super simple. We want 400 grams, we put the scales on. We want 400 grams of flour, 400 grams of flour. We're going to put 60 grams of the tallow in, and the tallow is definitely a firmer texture than the lard. Even like the lard firms up when it's cold, yes, but it doesn't go quite as solid. This almost is like kofa. So I don't know. Anyway, we'll do 60 grams of that, and then we'll bump our olive oil up a bit to about, let's try 75 first. That's an extra 15 grams of liquid. We don't want to go overboard because it just, the pastry just doesn't quite work if it's too wet either. And then we need 110 grams of cool water, and I'm going to add a pinch of salt because this is a savory dough.
I can make it about bitches.
And then we've just got it to this texture here, which is the balls. And then we're going to just see, yeah, see that comes together nicely. I think that will work. So we're going to get our dough mat out, we're going to tip it out, we'll put it into 2 discs, and then I'll put it in plastic and put it in the fridge, and I'll repeat the process so that we've got 4 discs all up, which is either 2 bottoms, 2 tops of a family pie, or 2 bottoms and we can use puff pastry for the top. My SD card was full, so I don't know quite where I got to. So it'll either be 2 tops, 2 bottoms of just shortcrust pastry, or we can use it as bottoms only and use puff pastry as the top pastry. It gives me the choice to do either. So we just tip it all out into the middle of the dough mat, and then we bring it all together. This looks good. It looks like it's holding well, but at the same time it's not, we don't want it a dough. Pastry isn't quite a dough. Like, it is, but it isn't. It's one of those things that you want to be able to see. You can actually see the flecks of fat still in it, so you don't want to overwork it, because those flecks of fat create the flakiness, the air pockets in the pastry and stuff. So all I do is I split it in half like that. Normally I do one half slightly bigger than the other half, because you need slightly bigger half for the bottom of a family pie and a slightly smaller one for the top of a family pie. So just like that. A little bit crumbly, but not excessively. I think it'll work. So I've got 2. I'll do 2 more. I'll bag them up. I'll put them in the fridge. I'll bring you back when I'm doing what I'm doing with them. I'm not sure what else I'm doing today yet, but I'll bring you along. All right, it's afternoon. It is almost 3:30. Bad time of day. The sun is glaring straight in the kitchen, so I've adjusted you, but there's still... Anyway, I have not got anything that I really wanted to get done today done. Daryl has been out the whole day. Had an appointment this morning, and then we needed him to go to Bunnings and stuff this afternoon. I'm planning on being out most of tomorrow, but I have pulled a whole bunch of chicken trim and the traditional bacon and stuff out, and the plan is to make chicken nuggets / patties with a bunch of that on Sunday for the next few days, but that will be a different video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the pies and stuff off today, and probably that will be this. I still haven't done the video on all the solar and stuff like that, so maybe I'll try and do that tomorrow, and then like a Sunday chat with all the solar and water and everything else on there. And then I will start the fresh weeks of food and stuff, and we will see how we go. I really don't know what the structure of things is going to be. It's a little bit more difficult with Mum here too, just because there's someone else who comes and goes as well. But I just haven't found a routine yet. There's so many projects that need to be done, like to do with Mum's place, as well as projects that need to be done around here, that it impacts like our normal routine of things. I'm still not sure when I'm doing grocery shopping yet either. So there's a lot of things up in the air. But I thought I would finish showing you the pie. So I just pulled the pastry out of the fridge. So we've got the 4 bits here, so they're nice and chilled. So I'm just going to let them come to room temperature for 15 minutes while I sort everything else out. And once they're sorted, we'll roll them out and we'll start making pies, and we'll see how much filling we've got and what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is, while these are warming up a little bit, I'm going to go find my pie tins, my pie pans, tins. They're not really tins because they're ceramic or cast iron, but anyway, and we will get those sorted and ready to go before we get moving on to these. Now, it's honestly probably a bit early to be putting these together realistically, but I'm tired, and they're the kind of thing that I can put together now at 3:30. Take me half an hour or whatever to get them all put together. They can go in the oven for 45 minutes or whatever, which is 4:45, and then the oven can just be left on low or just with the pilot light on for half an hour, and then they'll be ready to serve, and I'll do mashed potato at that time as well. So I just, yeah, it's probably a bit early, but I'm over it. I'm over the day. The boys had some assessments due, which we did, and things like that, and I'm just a bit over it. So let's see how the change that I made to the dough worked. It's feeling pretty promising. I always say this dough is very, very forgiving, but even I have been struggling with it the last few times because it was just too crumbly. I couldn't get it to roll out thin enough or to the right shape. It just wasn't malleable enough for me to manage. This is done a lot better. Now, the second batch, which I'll roll out one in a minute, I actually made a mistake and I forgot to add the water before I did the first mix, which means it added all the balls of tallow and everything got really finely chopped into the dough, which isn't actually what you want. You want chunks of it. So we will see how that one rolls out and how it cooks, and maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. So I have my cast iron pie dishes, but I also have one that a viewer sent me. It's this lovely Maxwell Williams ceramic one. So I'm going to put the base into, fill them with pie mix, and then I reckon I'll probably want a third as well. And it just means that some of them will have puff pastry topping, some of them will have shortcrust pastry topping, and that's just the way it is. Or I use my other shallow cast iron chef's pan or something and make a apple something as well, but might be a bit of an overkill of pie. Can always be reheated though, can't it? And I do regularly freeze these family pies. I will refrigerate them whole and then get them into a bag and freeze them whole, and then they can be slipped straight back into a pie dish and just baked from frozen, which is nice. So that actually went in really quite nicely. You want to make sure that you let it fall into the pie dish, not stretch it into there, because pie dough does shrink. So you want to have it just fall into those corners rather than stretching it into those corners. And that actually rolled out really nicely. So let's have a look at how much of my filling will go in there. The handle on my scoop is broken. It always uses more filling than I expect, and I prefer that because I want a higher filling to pastry ratio. I really like the idea of individual pies. That always ends up with a much higher pastry to meat ratio. It's just snapped off on me. And they're tasty, and I like the idea of how quick they'd be to reheat and stuff. But I don't have any individual pie dishes at the moment, and it would be a lot more work. So I'd have to really be in the mood for it. But so we want this a little bit domed because it will collapse a little bit as well, and you don't want your pie pastry to collapse. So you want it to have a little bit of a dome in the middle, and then we will fill the next one, and we'll do that first before we go topping this one. So let's pull out another bit of dough and I'll repeat the process. All right, so I filled the 3 bases. They're all probably a little light on filling compared to what I would normally do, just to make sure that there was enough, which is fine. It's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to trim the pastry off the edges. Everything comes up to the edge enough. I always say it when I'm making pies. My pies are always pretty rustic. It's not something that I am particularly good at, but we all enjoy the taste of them. And then I'm just going to use my knuckle and my fingers to pinch these edges together and flute them into and then that way any juices, if there's excess juices, will not escape into the bottom of my oven. So there we go. My very rustic pie. Slit in the middle, oven's preheating. I pulled some puff pastry out for the other 2, but it still has to defrost a little bit to be able to be handleable to put on the tops of the pies. In regards to dessert, I don't know if I'm really that bothered about it. Daryl's picking up some stuff in Toowoomba, and I actually bought some chips for the kids as well as some chips for us, because Mum's going to come down and we'll have a drink or two with dinner and some snacks, so I don't think dessert's really that important today. And they had all the rest of the cinnamon scrolls during the day as well, so I think I'm just going to puff pastry them and then bake them, and I'll show them to you when they're done. And I'll take some photos of the meal when I serve it up with mashed potato, and I think that's probably it for this one. So I'm pretty sure I've got more than enough footage for a video worth out of what I did. I also took some footage for the week before that I never put out, so I'm going to double check what I cooked in that and if there's anything I want to share, and I'll put that on here as well. And just get this done and out, and then I'll work on the solar video tomorrow to show you what we did with the solar and the water and everything else. And yeah, we'll go from there. It's all just still always never ending, learning and changing and adapting to what works. I know consistency is something that YouTube appreciates, and that some of the people who do YouTube as their primary thing have very significant consistency in when they release and the type of videos that they do and all that sort of stuff, but that's just a bit beyond me. I film what I'm doing and then I share it when I have time to edit it. So that's that. So I will take some photos of these pies, I will show you when they're cooked, and I'll get some photos of it being served up, and I'll put some stuff on the end here if there was something from the other video that I wanted to show you. And yeah, I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.